but then we're all reunited.
Yes. Right. The Brady Bunch got divorced and 3 of them found each other later on in life. Here we are. All right. So Jessica Wolfe, Derek Huether, I'm Dave Pryor. We're not putting a front end on this. It's just going to be cut and recorded the way it is. And we're going to talk about what life is like in lockdown and what we've both learned from 1 week of isolation, social isolation. So I'm going to ask everybody to introduce themselves and talk about the state of lockdown that you're in. So Jess, do you want to go first? Now that you got a mouthful of coffee?
Yeah, I guess I'm really prepared now, right? So the state of lockdown, it's interesting because I live in Tampa, Florida, and right now, as of Friday, we went on, hey, only essential workers should be out. But I feel like not much has changed, right? So like I already work from home. The only thing that has changed, I would say, is kind of the way that I work with my customers when we normally do going to their sites, and we can talk about that later. But I haven't been wearing makeup as much, so we're doing like makeup on. I'm like, oh my god, I can actually like put some clothes on that are nice and show myself here. But it's been relatively normal. The thing that is not normal is for my dog because doggy daycare closed, and I think that he's a little.
But you're home though, right? So Archer's got you around all the time.
He does, but he still does need his friend outlet.
Okay. I keep wondering if our cats are sitting around like in the corner, like, when are they going to leave? Yeah. Got to get the hell out of here. They need some me time. All right, cool. And your job?
Oh, so I work as an enterprise solutions architect, helping people configure Jira Align to connect strategy to the system of delivery.
All right, cool. Thank you. And Derek.
Hello.
Hello.
So what's different or hi?
No, what do you do? Where are you? How locked down are you? See, focus, man. Come on.
Hi, I'm Derek Huether. So I've been kind of in lockdown for almost 3 weeks, which is kind of interesting. When things started to ramp up, my previous employer actually made a call, and it was actually pretty impressive. And I was supposed to be in Chicago doing some training, and we got a memo at like 6 a.m. in the morning saying, you do not get on any plane, any train, anything, unless you have it approved by a senior vice president or above, which means nobody's going to approve that travel. And they're like, and so that was the first step. And it seemed like an eternity ago, where no more corporate travel. And within a few days, they said, on Monday, we're going to test all VPN systems. Everybody work from home on Monday to see what happens. By Wednesday, there was an enterprise-wide email saying everyone has to work from home from here on out until further notice. So it was really aggressive leadership.
Okay.
So I was really impressed by that. And then since then, I've left the company. And so it's been an interesting last couple of weeks. I'm excited to say that I have also joined Atlassian, and I'm going to be a solutions engineer. So I start tomorrow, and we'll see where that takes us.
And I'm psyched for you guys that you're working together again. That's cool. So I'm Dave Pryor. I'm still at Leading Agile. And I got off the road. I think it was let me look at the calendar, on the 20th. So I taught in Atlanta, and I got back on the 20th. And I'm in New York City, so everything is shut down. And Jess, it was like what you described. It was like that here in the beginning. But the first weekend, I think that everyone was supposed to stay home. They all went to the bars, and things went kind of crazy. So now, like, everything is shut down. And if you want to go to Whole Foods, you have to stand like in a line for hours where you're 6 feet away from somebody. We get other food delivered, so it's super weird because the people coming to the door with your food, it's like it's going to sound bad, but they're running out of gig workers. And the ones that we're getting are the ones that they wouldn't hire before, it seems sort of like, or they're just really worn out and tired. And I feel it's scary for those people because they're at the most risk. I mean, they're going to everybody's house. So I don't know, if somebody comes to your house and delivers food, try to be extra nice to them because they're working really hard. But I taught 2 classes virtually this week, and I haven't done that in a couple of years, like where it was full 8-hour days of virtual training. And that was very eye-opening. So I'll go last, but I wanted to see what it was like for you guys. What have you learned in the last week about interacting with your coworkers, your clients, dealing with being at home and the technology and all that stuff?
So I have a customer where we were supposed to be on site to do a kickoff. And now everything's changed, right? We have to understand that they're working from home, which they're cool working from home, but now they have their kids at home and they have their significant others at home and they're all sharing a space and doing work, right? So your attention span is a lot less. So one of the things that we've tried to do is modularize our kickoff into 1 hour increments with a max of 2 to 3 hours at a time and just have it spaced out because it's just too much for people to sit 8 hours when they have all this other stuff going on. So we're trying to be empathetic and give them homework in between. Like, okay, we realize that your time is valuable and you may not like you'll be able to do this stuff, but it may not be all at the same time with everybody. So
Yeah.
we're trying to work it out in that way. And then things that we would normally do on whiteboard, we're coming up with some creative solutions, like using Google Forms and things like that to collect feedback. And so far it's working, but we've had to put a lot of effort and thought and really work together as a team to come up with these solutions.
Okay. Cool. Um, so you mentioned that people are at home and they've got, interruptions from family and stuff. Have you found that wall between work and personal life is kind of collapsing around their ears?
I think so. I mean, I feel lucky because it's just like my dog and sometimes my boyfriend, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy. It's not really different. But I can totally imagine, and I'm sure like you and Derek probably have it a little bit differently because you have families at home. So I'd almost like to hear from your perspective with that.
Okay. All right. Well, Derek, what do you got?
So I was used to interacting with a group of executives. And so some of my colleagues, they were able to work from home a lot more than me. My behavior pattern was is I would commute 2 hours each way each day to go to headquarters, and I would sit outside of the managing vice president's office. And so there were these constant meetings. So I was constantly going in and out of meetings. What's interesting is as soon as things changed, as we went virtual, then I think Jess described it well. It was like you had to be super empathetic to everybody's situations because you're right. You heard dogs barking, you see kids running into the picture going, "Hey, can I do this? Can I do this?" And the nice thing was it humanized all the executives. They were
Yeah.
always this really well put together group, super professional, wearing their, really well starched shirts and everything. And next thing was like, "Daddy, can can I do this? Mommy, can I do this?" And all of a sudden they were so human,
Yeah.
and which everybody was vulnerable at that point. And it's really nice that everybody was just super understanding about it. And we're just like, we'll figure it out. It's okay. So I've seen that, yeah, the hardest part is we've got a teenager and now it's 24/7 gameplay. And we're still, because the schools
Yeah.
have not figured it out yet.
Oh,
Even,
they haven't.
yeah, they've got Chromebooks, they've got Google Classroom, they have all this, but they never got approval from the state for the curriculum to go online and everything. So the kids have had nothing to do for 2 weeks.
Really?
Yeah. And so and our state was one of the first ones. I'm in Maryland, and Hogan is our governor and super strong leadership. He went after, he's like, shut down, shut down. He was just shutting things down super left and right to contain this. And the kids were like, the kids were excited about it.
So what is Jake doing all day?
He's playing games. He's playing he's playing
Wow.
new games. And so he's loving it.
He's
But
trying to get that EA contract as a game player.
Exactly.
I'm-
It's the only sport left, right? Drone racing.
yeah. So he's been enjoying it, but it's kind of bleeding into, it's becoming summertime without going outside or anything like that, because he wants to stay up late, and then he gets up late and everything like that. And so
Yeah.
we're like, this isn't going to last forever. You need to get back into a schedule.
Well, I read this article with a NASA guy who spent, I guess, a year in space, and he said
Mhm.
that your schedule is the most important thing when you're in isolation because you don't have, it's just time.
Yeah.
And the schedule is what keeps things normal.
So
That and
Derek,
then
I was going
what?
to say, when it comes to him playing games and you're working, is it feeding into like your bandwidth at all? Are you having any issues? I know some of my customers are having issues with that and they have to turn off their videos.
We've been super fortunate that we get, it's not full gigabit down, but it's like 800 down. And so I'm like, open it up, man. Do whatever you're gonna do. I mean, he's not doing streaming, but it doesn't sound like he's having any gameplay latency. I haven't had any issues. I do know others that do have issues, and it gets Zoom. We've been using Zoom. That's one of the first. We were already using Zoom, but it we're using Zoom for everything now. Anything for coffee breaks and every meeting and even after hour get-togethers and things like that. We're using Zoom for everything. But surprisingly, it hasn't affected my video quality. It has affected others.
I have a tip for that
I want to hear it.
because I was worried about that. We have basically the same speed, I think, that you do, Derek, and everything in our apartment's on Wi-Fi. But to make sure that this, where I'm doing the teaching, this system is okay, I got a hub, and I'm running a wired connection from this computer directly into the modem. So that's going to get whatever it wants.
Right.
And then if my kid's playing PlayStation but the only problem is she's doing her school online. So we have to make sure there's enough for her too. So
I think this is going to force us to have a little bit more discipline around things we've taken for granted, the bandwidth,
yeah,
and we could have sloppy, let's call it sloppy networking, where, yeah, we'll plug in a Wi-Fi router. Yay, let's put everything on there. And now you actually have to be thoughtful about what are you wiring in? What are your priorities? Is video a priority? Audio is a second priority?
yeah.
Thing. So I think we're becoming more disciplined for so many different things as a result of this. It's just, what is that scarce resource?
Yeah.
Disciplined about using that resource.
I keep trying to think about the positive aspects of this. Like, even though there's a lot of, horrible things going on, the whole world is changing right in front of us. How we interact is completely changing. And on the other side of this, everything's going to be so different. It's kind of exciting to see that. And I'm in a 600 square foot apartment with my wife, my daughter, and 2 cats. And I love being, I'm so excited to be home all the time. It's pretty awesome. I want to go back to what you said about humanizing people. So I did 2 classes this weekend. In the first class, there's one person who was in bed, like not sick, just in bed the whole time, like under the covers. And another class, I had a person whose kid was like walking in and sitting on their lap and taking one of the headphones and stuff. And I totally agree with what you're saying about the humanizing. It made it more fun, and I felt like I had more of a connection with these people than I would ever get out of a classroom, because in the classroom it's only like the 2 or 3 that are always talking. But here you're seeing everybody in their living room and like their spouses walking around, and it's cool to be inside people's houses.
Yeah, I look at it as, when you do a class, you're trying to do some type of ice break, and you're like, hey, let's do 2 truths and a lie, or let's do something, and you get this tiny, tiny prepared nugget.
Yeah.
So it's like, I shaved this morning right before, I shaved.
I put pants on.
Right.
You can't see them, but they're there.
First step, let's put pants on.
That might be the lie.
Yeah. But it was, when you have the world happening around you, it's like if our spouses come in, or the cats, or whatever it might be, or like in your class, it's like you can have that prepared statement where you present that persona to that class, and it's 3 things or whatever it might be. And then there's the reality, and it's not the ugly reality, it's the beautiful reality of your kids coming in, and all of a sudden you, like you said, you learn so much more about these people so quickly, just from the interactions that they have with their family or their surroundings, that you're not going to get in a classroom.
Yeah. So I want to ask you guys both a question about this, because the thing that I struggled with is I didn't realize how dependent I was on people's body language and all the different things that I know I unconsciously pick up when I'm in a room with them. I don't get any of that. Like, all I get now is for 8 hours until I start and I have to figure out a different way to joke around with them. But I felt like some of that stuff, things going on around them, it's all like a different kind of body language. I feel like I just have to learn how to read it better. And I'm curious as to how you guys are experiencing that kind of stuff and dealing with your clients and coworkers.
Yeah. So one of the things that I was very cognizant about, we do a value drivers exercise where we want to understand what are the most important things to our customers when they are moving into the new tool. Why did they choose GRI, right?
Okay.
And when you do that in person, you can see the body language and the visual cues.
Yeah.
When someone says, "Oh, this is most valuable," you can see someone get uncomfortable, like, "That's not most valuable." So what I'm doing is breaking it up to introduce. Okay, these are the values, etc. Okay, now here's your homework. Here is a Google form where you're going to prioritize what these are, but in each and every section, it's what needs to change in your organization for this to be true, right?
Okay.
So give us the feedback that is for that. Now, it doesn't it's not a replacement for those visual cues, but it's also enough to get their voice heard. So when we come back the next day and we can look at all the data together, it's anonymous too. I mean, I know who it is, but not everybody does. Hopefully they're trusting me that I'm going to keep it that way. But bring it around like, okay, well, this is what the data that we have now. Let's talk about it. Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of breaking it up to have a coachable moment and to actually allow the voices to be heard that maybe their camera's off. Maybe we don't get to see these things.
Yeah.
So,
Cool. Thank you. And what about you, Derek?
The we're going to tell our best secrets here.
Well, that's what the whole point of the
That's the whole
podcast is
point
to
of this.
offer people advice and learnings, man.
Okay.
Come on.
So when you're in the classroom, totally agree with Jess. It's like looking at that body language. And the thing with being in the classroom is you have everyone else in the room that you can turn and look to, and you whatever it might be to keep your attention.
Find some resource of safety.
Yes. Whereas this, you're literally just staring. I have the two of you right here in front of me in my vantage point, and I can't take my eyes off you. And it's about it's engaging them, forcing an engagement that they might not want. First, there's the peer pressure. We're going to try to do peer pressure instead of mandating it, but keep the cameras on, because then you can at least see if they're looking at you or if they're looking at someone.
Yeah.
Or if you see.
Well, sometimes, because you get the people whose cameras are like.
Right.
Yeah. Like
so the other thing that I've done is I love the Google Suite, and what you can do with this is we would present a slide and everybody would have a link to the slide, and you could see their little emojis clicking on which slide that they were viewing. And you were like, let's go ahead and look at this slide. And I could see who was going ahead just by them clicking on the slide to read it. You could see their emoji.
You'd be like, hey, Bill, come on, buddy, back over here.
That's right. That's exactly right. And where you can more passively say, so Bill, on slide 4, whoop, you see Bill jump right back up there into the slide. But anything that we could do to engage those that we saw were either going ahead, they were being distracted, whatever you could do to re-engage them without just calling them out. Using tools like, again, just we were using Google Slides or Google Docs.
Sure.
And it really, really helped a lot in that fashion. The other one was all cameras on, all mics open, unless if your kids came in or something like that, you can go ahead and temporarily mute the mic. But stripping away as much friction as possible to just allow the conversation.
So I'm going to say one of the things that I'm not too, I would say, harsh on is having the camera on, because I do have customers where like the whole entire organization has said no cameras because it's breaking down our VPN. Like you can't do it. Right. Yeah. So here's the other thing you can do. I'm going to actually turn my camera off for a second.
Okay.
You can see my picture, right? So at least to a name, like at least you can do that. There's also visual cues that you can do, right? So like I can raise my hand in the session. You can't see that I'm raising it, but there's also other things on Zoom that you can turn on. So this way you can say, go faster, go slower. I need a coffee break, things like that, to give the person who's running the session those visual cues.
Yeah.
Other thing that I really like, of course I'm going to boast at Last AM Products, is Confluence. Right? Like, because you can go on Confluence, and if you have the analytics feature on, you can almost do the same thing Derek was talking about and seeing who's on the page right now.
Yeah.
And you guys can edit it all at the same time. You can add your feedback all at the same time. You can see what other people are doing. It's really a nice feature, and I don't know what they did. I don't know the logic behind it, but all the changes are saved somehow.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, we were using Miro, and it's the same thing. You can see where everybody's zooming around. Yep. I don't have any. I kind of got over my I'm not going to call people out thing about a day into the training. I was just like, look, your camera's not on. We don't know where you are. I try to do it in a lighthearted way, but I think that is, I'd found before when I did online training, so before we had video, that keeping a list of all the people in the room, and if I hadn't heard from like Steve in 6 minutes, I'm going to be like, Steve, what do you think about this? Mm-hmm. And so having multiple people to facilitate that kind of stuff, I think is really helpful.
Did you find yourself needing like an extra set of hands or extra set of eyes to help you with the class?
Yeah, I had 2 other people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and to me that's the trick, is you can't do it alone. You need 2 to 3 people. One person to run the technology, one person to lead the conversation, and another person to make sure everybody's engaged and doing stuff. that was sort of the thing to me. But I did have one thing that was really funny that I noticed that nobody talks about, at least I haven't heard anybody talk about, is teaching the people that we work with how to control their face in the video. Because at one point, like somebody said something, and this other student was like, and like I have one friend that I know is going to be sitting there like, and we can see you doing that now because they don't, they're used to not having the video. So um, developing sensitivity and awareness to what you're doing with your own face and your own body, I think, is important, but tricky. It's
I
not a
think
normal
we've
thing.
I think we've lost that a little bit, and
Yeah.
I'm not going to point to generations or anything like that. I believe that we have been conditioning ourselves that we so quickly react to things online that we modify our behavior when we're in person. Of course, you wouldn't do that when you're right there in the room with somebody like, oh, you're rolling your eyes or whatever.
Well, I
But
know
it's
some
almost
people that would.
okay. But
Like,
when we're online, we're so quick to show show our feelings and everything like that, believing like we're immune to anybody seeing what we're doing.
yeah,
Hey, your camera's on. We can see you doing that.
yeah,
If anything, I'm hoping that a positive outcome of this is going to be that we're going to improve our social behavior. We're going to be more self-aware of what we do, and we become more empathetic to others. Because I think
hopefully,
that we've
yeah,
gone to such an extreme over the last couple of years of we're immune to everyone else, and you see such mean, spiteful things on the internet because there's no ramifications. It's just a line of text in
yeah.
a and versus that's a person that you're actually interacting with, and that hurts when you see something like that. And I'm hoping that this is actually going to bring us back to a new normal.
Cool. All right, so I got one more for you guys, and it's sort of going back to the thing you said in the very beginning, Jess. You talked about limiting stuff to like an hour. I found we were doing like 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off. So I want to keep this short, but in terms of level of energy or like how taxing this was for you guys mentally in terms of decision fatigue or just focus, was this harder for you this past week than it's been previously?
I'm gonna say yes. Not because I'm changing the way I work, but because I'm trying to help my customers figure out the best way for them to change the way they work without actually
Okay.
being in their shoes, right?
Yeah.
So it's and they're still moving forward with this, and some of them are going through transformations at the same time, and their agile consultants aren't able to be there on the ground with them. No one's able to be there on the ground. So
Yeah.
how do we how can we set up a platform for them to do all the things they need to do to be successful? And I got to be honest, it's been taxing. I've worked a whole lot more the past 2 weeks than I have, I think, the entire time I've been at Atlassian because I care about the problem and I care about the solution, right?
Yeah.
So that I would say yes, it's been harder, but not in my day to day. It's just more for my customers, and I want to make sure that they're successful.
Okay.
Okay.
Derek?
Oh, I was going to say, Dave, you. This has been much harder for me. Part of it was in order to create boundaries for myself, I would go to headquarters
Yeah.
and I would go to the rooms. And even if there were other people every meeting was at headquarters, even if it was remote, I was at least at headquarters. And when I was done with the day, I would go home. And so not having that, so then going home, but then also transitioning out of the company, suddenly I really intentionally, made myself valuable and I solved problems with ridiculous deadlines. And so I believed that the more constraints there were, the more creative the solution could be. And then I took all those constraints away. Didn't have to drive a couple hours to work, didn't have to solve a problem there. And then when I was offboarding, all of a sudden these weren't my responsibilities anymore. These were somebody else's responsibilities. I need to train them up.
You
All the
freaking
se-
out?
all the sense of urgency was gone, and that structure that I valued. I mean, I would get up at 4:30 in the morning, get to headquarters so I could go run for 3 to 5 miles every morning. That was gone. So you can only imagine, the distance I've been running since I gotten home. Very little.
Okay.
It's just all these things. I had this structure and these patterns and these constraints, and they're all gone. So I'm trying to create that again. I'm super excited starting at Atlassian because now I have now what's the
Like,
next
I gotta
challenge?
go to work now. Bye.
That's right. And I've tried to isolate myself here in my office. Still, it's not the same. You can hear the cats playing outside the door with their toys and everything, So
Yeah.
the world is still happening. It's just so much closer. And so the boundaries, it's just, I think to Jess's point, it's so much hard. I believe it's just so much harder because you have all this other interference now, and it takes your energy level down faster. You have to take more breaks in order to come back and focus. This with the two of you has been super simple. You know, it's
Right.
very
Well,
focused.
we've done this before. I mean,
Right.
we're
Right.
used to it.
But when
Familiar.
you're talking about,
Yeah.
there's 8 hours of work
Yeah.
that is ahead of you or meetings. And I'm coming from a culture that was notorious for back to back to back to back meetings. That is, every meeting started late because everybody was literally running from the last meeting to the next meeting, and you're going from one building to another on campus and things like that.
Wow.
And now, guess what? That's not there. Now it's a virtual, and oh, you could just click over, right? And so people were exhausted because there was no, when am I going to go to the bathroom? I could at least go to bathroom
Yeah.
when I was running from meeting to meeting physically. Virtually,
You can't
so
virtually go to the bathroom.
you can't. You just sit there.
It's a Coco, maybe.
Yeah,
Just like, I'll be right back.
yeah.
Stop video. You
But
can
again,
sign
I think
there.
it's forcing. It's been forcing me and forcing others to say, hey, it's not about doing that 8 hours worth of work. Let's try to, everybody's just trying to be very accommodating, understanding that this is hard and that we're not wired for this. And this is going to take some time. So let's do the best we can with what we have right now. Nobody's being overly demanding. And it's especially senior leadership. We're communicating that again and again and again,
Yeah.
saying, we're all in this together. Let's figure this out. Do the best you can. Just support one another, and just keep reinforcing that.
So I'm going to talk about my experience, but before I do, I want to throw out a topic for another podcast so you guys can think about it.
Okay.
The thing that both of you mentioned about, work. For me, one of the hardest things when I started working from home was, and this was years ago, when does the day stop? And I'm noticing that with other people that I'm, working with that aren't used to it. It's like now they're just working 24 hours. I mean, they'll sleep for a little bit, but the rest, everything is work. So defining those boundaries, doing what you have to do for self-care so that you can keep working at a sustainable pace. I mean, that's going to be different for all of us. Like Derek, you don't have that time on the bus going from one office to the other or driving in the car or whatever. So maybe if you guys can think about that, we could talk about that next time. I was devastated. My energy level was destroyed this week. It was so much harder than I thought it was going to be. And it was all trying to pick up on signals and stuff that weren't coming through because I can't see body language. So making choices about what to do where, how to change things, how to keep everybody engaged. Every day when the class was over, I had to just lay down and take a nap. The good thing is the bed is right next to where I'm working. So I just crawl into the bed and go to sleep. But yeah, it was a lot harder, and it wasn't harder for any reason other than different tools, different way of working, different way of interacting. It wasn't like the content was harder, but
Right.
communicating and reaching people and connecting with them. Like even now, like I've got the two of you and Derek's here and Jess, your picture's up here. So I'm constantly having to move the thing up and down. So it's not like I'm looking at you like, so, da, da, da. Like to try to look the person in the eyes, it's hard because the camera's not in the middle of the screen. So all those little things just wore me out. It was hard.
I wonder if you're going to have to restructure classes to meet the conditions. And what I mean by that is, if you're in a physical classroom, we're going to say, all right, we're all going to agree, we're going to take a break at this time, we're going to take lunch at this time, but food comes in and coffee comes in, whatever. But on a virtual environment, it's almost like, yeah, these can only be 6-hour sessions, and we have to take a 10-minute break every hour, whatever it might be, in order to keep the energy level up.
Yeah, it was 50 minutes, 10-minute break.
Yeah,
That was
Derek,
necessary. People start to get like restless and spacey.
we had to do that. We couldn't do whole days because our customers, it's just not going to work. So like, it's 2 hours here, 2 hours here, 2 hours here. We could have done three, but like even with our customers with the kids at home, that's such a challenge, right? So it's like, all right, these normal sessions that we have, instead of doing it as a one day thing, we're going to split it up into 3 or 4 days.
We did the whole day, and
How did that work?
it was okay. I mean, people were as the same energy level throughout the day as they would be in a regular class. I
Mhm.
was shocked at how the interactive stuff, which is what I was worried about, that was so awesome. I was blown away by how well that went because I thought that was going to be the hard part. But
Can you
people
talk a
just
little bit about that?
I'm super curious about what you did.
yeah. So we would do. I mean, I didn't normally in class. I'd have the students plan the agenda, but I planned it all out. So we would send them in a Miro, and there'd be like sorting exercises where they're prioritizing stuff or brainstorming ideas. We did empathy maps, vision statements, stuff like that, and broke them into small groups in separate rooms, and they just took to it. I mean, it was just like some people obviously are going to lead, but everybody was part of it, and that was a cool thing. Like I was expecting to have to push people to get them engaged, but that didn't happen with anybody. Everybody seemed to really make a concerted effort to put themselves into the conversation. Um,
When you
and
broke up
and
into
there's always like in a real class, there's always like the people that are just like yeah,
yeah.
whatever, and that
So
didn't happen. So that was really neat.
when you broke up into different rooms, did you have different moderators in each
Yeah.
room?
So that's the other reason for multiple facilitators.
Ah,
And I think them having different voices from people, like changing what you're doing about every 10 to 15 minutes keeps them from like getting bored and kind of drifting. So we are constantly switching from one thing to the next. Um, and that's going to be, even more refined in the coming classes. So
I guess one other question I have with that is, did you find that people were able to focus on the class and not focus on work?
yeah,
Okay, because I know
because we
sometimes
were constantly like, Sam, why are you with this? Okay, Sarah, what do you think about this? So, and that's the thing I learned before is that when I did it for a client a long time ago when I worked at another company. There were no cameras. So one person's job was to keep the list of like the 20 participants and check off every time you heard somebody talk. And if you hadn't heard somebody talk in like the last 5 or 10 minutes, they were called on. And once they figured that out, they all stayed engaged
yeah.
because they didn't want to be caught not paying attention. So I think establishing, stuff like that, keeping the group small, having multiple facilitators, changing up what you're doing. Um, it's different than the way we used to work, but it's cool to be figuring this stuff out, I think. So,
and you know what? The people that we serve really need it, so I'm glad that we're all
mhm.
focused.
Yeah, cool. So are you guys willing to do another one of these in like a week or two?
Yeah.
Week of 2. Yeah, wait that long?
Well, a couple of days.
Okay.
I want to give you time to get settled into your new gig, Derek. To your new
Yeah,
office.
I'm trying to figure out. I'm supposed to host Agile Baltimore this next Friday, and so of course we can't do it physically. So
Are you gonna do it
I'm
virtually?
gonna do a virtual, do a Zoom. So I'm still trying to. Maybe I'll reach out to Mark Kilby or somebody.
Derek,
Uh, mm,
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to mention a name on the podcast.
okay,
Rob Phillips has been doing it in Atlanta, and it seems to be successful. So I would talk to
I'll
him.
ping Rob. Okay,
And
cool.
so, do you want to tell these people where I'll make sure this goes up in the next 2 days. So if they want to come virtually to attend your conference,
Oh no, it's not conference, just a meetup.
well,
So
if they okay,
it's a monthly meetup, Agile Baltimore, and we usually meet on first Fridays,
okay,
usually from 7:30 until 9 because we all got to get to the office. So it'll be interesting that we're shifting to a Zoom session. I'm just gonna think it's usually we hold it in a lean coffee format.
yeah,
So I don't know if we'll use Google Docs or how we might. I have to think through that. And I don't know what this week I'm onboarding this week, so I don't know what it's gonna be
yeah,
like, but I'm still excited about getting the group back together since all
cool,
this started happening.
awesome. Well, thank you guys both for doing this. Jess, if folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Um, Probably not email because I have like 200 unread emails.
200, 200, really? I
I
want
was
to show
looking
you
at my
something
work
here.
email.
Show
Okay,
us.
My
see this?
email's like 1,000.
Oh, you can't see it.
Pull
It
that
says
in.
8216 unread emails in my inbox.
So I'm not talking about my personal one. That's my work one.
Wait, hold on. Ready?
So the best way to get in touch with me is likely going to be on LinkedIn or
Okay.
Twitter, and it's at the Jessica Wolfe.
All right, cool.
/ the Jessica Wolfe.
All right, I'll put links to that. And Mr. Huether?
I can be found anywhere online under Derek Huether. So LinkedIn, Twitter, That's DEREKHUETHER. And yeah, no email.
Cool.
Let's do sales.
All right, thanks. And I'll put my information in the show notes as well, guys. Thank you very much. Good luck with your week. And Derek, good luck with the new gig.
Well, thank you, Dave. Good to see you, Jess.
See you guys. It's great seeing you guys.